materia medica, Aconitum Napellus. You might know it as monk should. And wow, is this one a story. It's built on a huge and absolutely fascinating contradiction. Yeah, so right off the bat, you're hit with this massive question. How can something that's one of nature's deadliest poisons also be considered a primary nursery remedy? It doesn't seem possible, right? The texts talk about it for those super early acute conditions. But still, a poison?
And this really lays it all out, side by side. On one hand, you have this notoriously dangerous plant, and on the other, it's been transformed into what the texts call one of the best of the nurseries. Now, they say this transformation happens through that whole process of dilution and potentation. It's so foundational, in fact, it's considered one of the ABC remedies, aconite, belladonna, and chamomilla. It's a pretty wild claim when you really stop and think about it.
Okay, so how do we even begin to wrap our heads around this? Well, the texts give us this amazing metaphor, and honestly, it's the key that unlocks the entire thing. It all comes down to a storm. You've got to hear this quote. This is it. This is the whole profile in a nutshell. Aconite is like a great storm. Just picture it, a beautiful clear day, and then bam, a violent thunderstorm just erupts out of nowhere. It's intense, it's raging, and then, just as fast as it came, it's over. The sun's out again. That is the aconite state. So what does that storm actually look like? Well, we're not talking about some long, drawn-out chronic thing. No way. This is something that hits you like a freight train, a sudden onset with violent symptoms. You feel this intense, almost frantic restlessness. But here's the kicker, and this is so important. The whole thing is over fast. It comes on quick and it leaves quick. All right, so we've got the storm, but every storm has lightning, right? That bolt of lightning that just lights up the entire sky? In the aconite picture, that lightning is found in the mind. The number one, absolute, most important part of this whole picture is fear. And the source material couldn't be clearer about this. It literally says the genius of the remedy, its true essence, is in the mental sphere. I mean, you could have every single physical symptom lined up, but if you don't have that very specific mental and emotional state, it's just not aconite, period. And just look at the intensity here. The very face of aconite expresses fear. We're not talking about just being a little worried. This is an all-consuming, overwhelming terror that you can literally see on someone's face. The text even says their life is rendered miserable by fear. It's just that intense. And this fear shows up in one of the most bizarre and specific ways you can imagine. The texts call it clairvoyance. The person is so utterly convinced they're about to die from whatever acute thing is happening that they will actually predict the exact time of their death. Can you imagine? They'll point to a clock and say, "That's it, I'm gone when that clock strikes 3." It's just, wow, a truly unforgettable symptom. Now, to really nail this down, the source material gives us a great comparison with another remedy, arsenic. See, the aconite person is terrified of dying, and they are sure it's happening right now. They're screaming, "Call the doctor, get help quick." They believe they can be saved. The arsenic person, they also fear death, but it's a totally different vibe. It's more like, what's the point? This is incurable, medicine won't help. So you see, it's not just the fear of death, it's the kind of fear that really matters. Okay, so you've got this incredible storm raging in the mind. And of course, that's not just gonna stay there. That turmoil spills over and creates a powerful storm inside the body too. The texts describe the main physical effect as a turmoil in circulation. And it makes perfect sense, right? The mental panic and tension are perfectly mirrored by physical tension, congestion. Your whole circulatory system just goes haywire. And that's what sets the stage for a sudden inflammation. And you can see the signs of this turmoil pretty clearly. First, the skin is just burning hot, but it's dry, almost never a sweat. Then there's this wild, unquenchable thirst for huge gulps of cold water. Their face might be flushed bright red, or, and this is a weird one, it'll switch back and forth between red and deathly pale. And the pain, the pain is described as just intolerable. So bad it drives them absolutely crazy, making them toss and turn with that same frantic restlessness. So what could possibly set off a storm like this? Well, the sources list a few key triggers, and they all have one thing in common: a sudden shock to the system. It could be something physical, like getting hit with a blast of dry, cold wind. Or it could be something purely emotional, like a sudden, terrible fright.
Okay, so with all that in mind, let's talk about where aconite actually fits into the picture. What's its specific role?
The key here is all about timing. Aconite is for the very first stage of an acute illness. We're talking about that initial shock, that first wave of inflammation before it settles down and localizes somewhere. Before it becomes pneumonia in the lungs or tonsillitis in the throat. This is for that first system-wide panic.
The texts also lay out what are called modalities. Basically, what makes things better or worse. For aconite, things almost always get worse in the evening and at night, or if they're in a warm, stuffy room. And what helps? Getting into the cool, open air, uncovering themselves. That's what brings some relief. And this really brings it all back home. We have this quote directly from Hahnemann and hammers home the main point. He says, whenever aconite is chosen, you must above all observe the moral symptoms. He's talking about that mental anguish, that intense fear and restlessness. Without that, he's saying you're looking at the wrong remedy.
So we end up right back where we started, with that incredible paradox. Aconite, as it's laid out in these texts, isn't just a substance. It's a snapshot of a crisis in full swing. It's a poison, it's a remedy, and maybe it's a mirror for our own deepest fears. And that leaves you with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? What does a profile this dramatic really tell us about that undeniable, instantaneous link between our mind and our body?